welcome to my channel. I'm Rosa Maria. Today I have a great project. It's very simple, it's very basic, and we're going to learn how to make a tote bag. And this tote bag, you could make it just one afternoon, so it doesn't take too long, and it's very simple, as I mentioned. And what I like about this tote bag is this project is you can customize the strap handles to the size that you prefer, and also you could customize the length and the width of the bag that you prefer. And this is a great project that you can make for yourself. You can make so many, and also you can make it for your friends and family. And also if you have an Etsy store, you can also sell it online to make some extra cash. So let's get started with this great project. Materials you're going to be needing is a pair of scissors, a sewing gauge, a friction pen, a coordinating thread, and a 1-inch webbing strap, a ruler, a fabric. The fabric I'm using here is a cotton quilting fabric, but you can use a heavyweight fabric, or you could use a denim fabric if you want the tote bag to be a little more sturdy. First, cut your fabric 16 by 24 inches. And also I have here the web strap. I cut it 20 inches. So make sure that you have the front and the back fabric cut, as I mentioned, 16 by 24, and make sure you have your two straps also cut by 20 inches long. I have both here my cotton fabric, and I cut both of these two pieces of fabric by 20 inches by 16. I have here both cotton fabrics. Both pieces I used the measurements to cut 16 inches by 20 inches. And once you finish cutting your fabric to the size that you prefer, make sure that you take your iron and you iron your fabric to remove any creases. I'm just checking to make sure that the bottom fabric is nicely ironed. Once you finish ironing both of your pieces, take the top fabric and face it down. And once you face it down, the reason why is because I just want to make sure that both of the printed side of the fabric are facing each other. And now I'm going to make sure that they're aligned. And once we have both fabrics aligned, take your sewing pins, and I'm going to take my sewing pins and I'm going to pin both sides here of the fabric and also pin the bottom. So these are the areas we're going to be sewing. We're going to sew from here all the way to the bottom and on top, but we're going to leave the top here area opened. So let me start pinning. Oops. Okay, I'm done pinning all three areas here, and now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine. For your seam allowance, make sure you have 1 inch. Your machine will have the markings and you can mark the 1/2 inch. Here on my sewing machine, I have my tape that is marked according to the 1/2 inch. And the reason why I have this tape is going to make it easier for me to make sure that I'm sewing straight line. So now we're going to stitch the front and back together. I'm going to back stitch to secure both of the fabrics together, and I'm going to continue to sew. As I'm getting closer to here the end, I'm going to lift the presser foot, pivot the fabric. I noticed that it's a little too longer here. It doesn't meet the 1/2 inch. I'm gonna move it back and manually do another stitch here and pivot and continue to sew straight down. And likewise do the same with this one. I'm going to lift the foot presser, and let me just remove this pin out of the way, and I'm going to continue I'm coming to the end, back stitching to secure it, and I'm done. We just finished sewing both sides of the fabric here and also the bottom. Now I'm going to remove all the pins. And then next I'm going to take my pair of scissors, and the extra fabric that we have here, we're going to trim it off for all 3 sides of the fabric. And just make sure that when you're trimming your extra fabric here that you don't trim off the thread. We finished trimming all 3 corners of the excess fabric. Next step is we are going to fold the fabric 1 inch, and I'm going to take here my sewing gauge, and I'm going to move the guide to 1 inch, and the 1 inch I'm going to use, and this is going to help me to make sure that I have a 1 inch fold. Let me just check here, it's a little bit too big. Okay, let's see. Okay, so I have a 1 inch fold. I'm going to check the other side too, just to make sure. Okay, looks pretty good. Let me just move this here and make some adjustments. Okay. Now I'm going to take my iron and I'm going to gently press. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Gently press. Now that I have that 1 inch fold, we are going to fold it again for I'm sorry, not half an inch, but for an inch. I'm going to take my sewing gauge just to make sure I have an inch here. Okay. Do a little more adjustments. Okay. All right. Let me just check again the other side. I have half an inch. If it's a little bit more than an inch, that's okay. Now I'm going to press it, iron it. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. Now that I have that folding for both sides, now I'm going to unfold. Now I'm going to turn the fabric inside out. Make sure you use your fingers to push out the corners. And I'm gonna just iron this end here, but I'm gonna be very cautious not to iron where I already created the foldings. Just gently iron. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to take my ruler, and right over here at the end I'm going to make a 4-inch marking. There goes my 4-inch marking. And I'm going to take here my friction pen. Right here on the top I'm going to mark where that 4-inch marking is. I'm going to flip the ruler and do this to the other side here. Got my 4-inch. Mark it. I'm going to flip it to the other side. Do the same thing. Now that I made that marking for both sides of the bag, I'm going to take my webbing strap and I'm going to align it right next to the marking that I made here. And I'm going to take my sewing pin, making sure I'm just taking one side of the fabric. Let me just trim this here. It's a little bit longer. Okay. Okay. And do the same thing over here. Now I'm going to flip it to the other side. And take my webbing over here, strap. Oops, sorry. And align it. Take this side also and align it right there. Okay, making sure it looks good. So now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and I'm going to attach the handles to the fabric. Okay, we're at the sewing machine and I'm going to stitch across just to make sure that the webbing strap is attached to the fabric here. Just remove that pin. I'm going to back stitch just to make sure that the strap is secure. Now I'm going to move to the next one. I'm going to remove the pin out of the way. We finished attaching the webbing handle to the fabric. Now the next step we're going to do is we are going to fold it in half where we made the first 1-inch fold. Okay, so both sides, the first fold, it's made. And then the second one, the second step, I mean, is we are going to refold again where we made the second fold for 1 inch. Okay, let me make sure I got this. Okay. And when we do that, we are gonna fold the handle as you see here. And I'm gonna take a sewing pin and I'm going to pin it to secure it. And do the same thing for this strap here. Fold it, pin it. Okay, let me just fix this over here. This one was not looking good. Then I'm going to turn it to the other side so I can work on the other strap here. Fold, and then refold again. Okay, now that I fold them, now I'm going to be taking it to the sewing machine, and I'm going to top stitch 1/4 here on top here, as you see here, of the fabric. Okay, I'm going to start to top stitch 1/4 here at the edge of the fabric. I'm going to back stitch to secure the fabric. I'm going to remove the sewing pin. I'm coming here to the end. Back stitch. Now that I finish, hopefully you can see it here in the camera, the top stitch on the top. Now I am going to turn the fabric around, and I'm going to start where I stitched on the top, but I'm going to stitch now on the bottom. Okay, right here at the edge. Back stitch. Coming to the end. Now we're gonna make a final stitching in the middle. Let me just go back to where I started. Where is it? Here we are. So I'm going back and I'm gonna stitch the middle. As you can see here in the middle. Okay, I finished doing those 3 stitches all around the fabric, the top stitch here at the bottom and the middle. We finished sewing our project. Look how nicely it looks. Now I'm going to give it a final iron. And we are done. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial on how to make a tote bag. Quick and simple and easy, as I mentioned. If you like the video, please share with your friends and your family. And if you're not a subscriber, click on the subscribe button and also click on the bell. So when you do click on the bell, I believe twice, YouTube will notify you every time I upload a new video. And I wanted to mention in the description box below, I listed all the materials and also where you can buy the materials so you can start working on your project. So I hope you enjoy it, as I mentioned, and until next time.